I joined Helix in mid-January of this year as the CEO, and I was attracted by the existing high-grade copper resources, which are located in a highly copper mineralised region of Australia, the Cobar Basin. Another appealing factor was the copper price, and there's really strong supply and demand fundamentals, and we can see this through the copper price at the moment, which is at almost 10-year highs. And looking at the exploration side of things, I just saw an incredible opportunity and a growth story there, which is just not being valued by the market. And hopefully at the conclusion of this discussion, you'll see what that valuation gap is as well. Next slide, please. So the main sort of investment propositions are really that we're in the right metals, copper and gold, with a strong price outlook and strong growth fundamentals in terms of demand. I want to demonstrate that we're in a great neighbourhood. Cobar's got over 100 years of high-grade copper production, and there's major operations around us, such as Aeris's Tritton copper operations and Glencore's CSA mine. As well, Helix has around 52,000 tonnes of copper in resources and a huge underexplored tenement package. And we're putting in place a really aggressive strategy to find more copper. Next slide, please. So our strategy is very much focused on the right metals, copper and gold, in a great neighbourhood. I'm going to try and avoid the cliche of tier 1 jurisdiction, but quite frankly, where would you rather be developing a metals project than an established mining district such as Cobar in New South Wales in Australia? Next slide, please. So we're all attending the webinar and we're all zoomed into these stories because we understand what the looming copper supply squeeze is coming. And we're seeing expressions of that supply squeeze with this almost 10-year high copper price. This morning, $9,300 a tonne, well over $4 a pound. And as for gold, look, you'll see it's not a focus for us just at the moment, but it remains a sought after commodity in times of uncertainty, and clearly that's now, as well as in times of inflation. And I suspect that that's coming. Next slide, please. So I'll make the case that we're in the right neighbourhood. And you'll notice that we've got several large-scale copper and gold producing centres in and around our tenement blocks. Shown in blue on the slide are our COLLERINA project on the east and our Cambeligo project tenements to the west. And there you can see Aeris's 25,000 tonne a year Tritton operations, Glencore's 50,000 tonne a year copper CSA mine, and a range of other significant copper, gold and base metal resources and projects. Next slide, please. We have a pretty clear strategy. It's to grow our copper resource base by increasing the existing resources, which are open-ended. We want to test existing targets and generate new targets on these underexplored tenements that we have. And we also want to assess regional opportunities. It's to develop a Cobar-focused copper business. We are a junior company, so focus is a really important discipline for us. And we're looking to commercialise our Chile copper assets, perhaps by divestment or a farm out. I think also, as well, to underpin what we plan will be a positive flow of news. We want to improve our investor communications. And this webinar, aside from a little technical glitch at the start, is an example of that process kicking off. Next slide, please. Just to set the scene, quick corporate snapshot. And we've also just closed a heavily oversubscribed 2-tranche placement to raise $3 million. And I'd just like to acknowledge our appreciation and support from our new investors and welcome them to our register and hopefully an exciting journey ahead. Since we did that placement, which was basically at market, our price has lifted from 1 cent to 1.4 cents. And I think that's happened as people understand our new strategy and the incredible opportunity in regard to our current market cap in terms of what's ahead of us. You'll see there we've got a small experience board, and I've attached some more details or background on each of us at the back of this presentation, which is on our website. Next slide, please. So clearly we see copper as the focus for our strategy, and with funds and support available now, we want to move aggressively to build that business case. And I'd just like to outline that for you now. Next slide. Yeah. So we've got two main tenement groupings, which cover a total area of around 1,500 square kilometres. On those tenements, we've got two main copper trends, the Rochford and COLLERINA. And each of these copper trends has a mineral resource located on it. At COLLERINA, on the eastern side, we have what we call the central zone deposit. It's 2 million tonnes at 2% copper. It's about 50-50 indicated and inferred. That's a JORC 2012. And then on the western side, we have the Rochford trend, which hosts the Cambeligo deposit at the north end. Now that's a JORC 2004 resource. It's about 1.5 million tonnes at 1.2% copper. And again, all the details around that are appended to this presentation available on our website. I'll go to the next slide, please. Look, this is really an important slide. It kind of summarizes or encapsulates the whole exploration opportunity. And I think at the end of this, you'll see the incredible opportunity we've got for discovery here. Now, we know that a geophysical survey technique called electromagnetic, or EM, generally finds copper deposits in Cobar. This method relies on mineral deposits such as massive sulfide copper deposits on being conductive, and clearly copper sulfides are a conductive mineral. But notwithstanding that it's such a successful exploration tool in these kind of regions, you can see on this map about 80% of our tenements have had no EM coverage. You can see the two tenements on the left and right. You can see that we've outlined the copper trends that we're chasing, over 120 kilometres of prospective copper trends, and yet only around COLLERINA on the bottom right-hand side of that plan have we had any VTEM or EM coverage. I mean, that's just a huge opportunity. And on Tuesday, we started a large-scale heli VTEM survey. It's going to be 2,000 line kilometres, and this will become a really important first pass targeting tool for us. And this is what I mean when I'm saying going big on this 120 kilometre stretch of prospective copper trends. You know, in an exploration sense, we're not going to die wondering. And we're really excited and anticipating positive results from this survey. And I think those results will be coming through the course of March. Next slide, please. So let's just have a closer look at the COLLERINA project and that central zone resource that I talked to earlier. You can see them in this picture just on the bottom right-hand side there. 2 million tonnes, 2% copper. However, it sits within an overall 25 kilometre long zone, and yet just about all of the drilling is focused in and around that central zone deposit, despite there being really encouraging geology, soil geochemistry and geophysics right along that 25 kilometre zone. At this stage, we have at least 6 targets which just demand testing, including by drilling, along this, what's clearly a high-grade copper trend. Let's just have a look at that a little bit more closely on the next slide. So at COLLERINA, we have fresh sulfide zone, which is clearly a high-grade copper deposit. And you can see the drill intercepts shown on that long section, for example, 12 metres at 5% copper, 11 metres at 6.6% copper. And that's consistent down plunge, looking from right to left on the screen. And there are clear opportunities to extend this resource, both down plunge and across parallel shoots. I'll show you this on the next slide. Here I'm trying to represent schematically the geological model that we've developed, where we're interpreting that the high-grade copper zones are accumulations in the hinge zones of regional folds. It's represented by that red stripe along the hinge zone of that fold. Regrettably, recently we announced some drill results we were drill testing that parallel hinge position just to the right there, but we were doing it with reverse circulation drilling. This was late last year, and we experienced significant hole deviation, and frankly, we missed the hinge zone. But you can see along there where we've schematically represented these untested EM conductors from downhole EM surveys and surface EM surveys, that these conductive anomalies are sitting along that hinge zone. I'm really pleased to say that we're now in advanced talks with several diamond drilling contractors to ensure that we can drill accurately and test these positions. And hopefully that'll be the start of a step-out drilling process to test and define extensions to this resource. Next slide, please. Just to illustrate that geological model and the opportunity a little bit further, in the top diagram, that's a plan view where you can see overlaid on our drilling grid the interpreted trend of that copper mineralization and plan. And on the bottom view there, you can see those three plunging interpreted shoots. The middle shoot is the central zone deposit, and you can see on the northern and the southern plunging shoots there, we have these untested EM anomalies and anomalous results in drilling at shallow levels higher up the plunge. So there's real opportunity here to grow with better geological understanding and with better quality drilling to really grow this resource out. Next slide, please. And I was talking about 120 kilometres of prospective strike. I'd like now to move to the western side, or our western tenements, which encompass the Rochford copper trend. And again, on this trend, we have a mineral resource. It's the Cambelago resource. It's a 2004, as I said, about 1.5 million tonnes at 1.2% copper. It's all inferred, but it's also open at depth. It's only been tested to about vertical depth around 250 metres. And there's untested EM conductors there, and there's been virtually no drilling beneath those conductors or to test them. There has been no drilling to test the conductors, but I was going to say there's virtually no drilling to the south, particularly along that entire trend. Really excited to say that our joint venture partner on this Cambelago project area, Eris, who have a 30% interest, will be helping us to fund not only the component of the aerial VTEM that's occurring over those tenements, but also a drilling program. And hope to be looking forward to doing that soon. We've undertaken a lot of auger soil sampling, and it's clearly defining a copper anomaly. Just go to the next slide. What you can see here is how we got onto this prospect that we call Bijou, and it's a great example of the opportunity overall. We know we've got high-grade copper mineralisation to the north at Cambelago. Coming south, we've got anomalous soils, we've got geophysical anomalies, and we even intersected some anomalous copper and scout holes, but they were drilled off the target and only got anomalous mineralisation. But again, you can see here we've got a partially completed EM survey which finishes in a hotspot. So if you reflect on all of that in terms of our exploration to date, the company has tended up until now to undertake discrete, smaller style campaign type exploration. I'd like to change that. I'd like to move to sort of bigger, bolder approach. And I think our airborne VTEM survey reflects that. Now, when we finish that, I'm hoping that we will suddenly be able to have this regional data set and be able to tie in all of these known deposits and the targets, and I'm sure to generate new targets so that we really have a full understanding of the opportunities along all of our prospective copper trends. Now, why is this important? It's really important because these large-scale data sets, geophysics, EM, geochem, geology, covering the majority of the prospective copper trends enables us to work more efficiently. I think fundamentally exploration is a numbers game. The more targets you test, the luckier you become. And our strategy is designed to enable us to rank all our targets and then focus and prioritize our efforts and dollars always to testing the best targets. Next slide, please. Well, obviously I love copper, but I don't mind flirting a little bit with gold. And we do have some really interesting gold prospects in and around our Cobalt tenements. They're tricky to find, but if you find them, they can be highly rewarding, such as the 4 million ounce Peak line and operations demonstrates. Basically, we need to review our exploration results to date and reassess our exploration strategy there. So our gold expert work will be getting a lower priority. Next slide, please. So I'd just like really quickly to give you an update as to what's happening with our Chile projects. These are copper projects that the company generated in its own right. It owns them 100%. There's no daggy royalties or minority ownership hanging off them. They're really well located in terms of lowish altitude, good infrastructure, and there's been some really encouraging proof of concept type results, such as 350 meters drilled at 0.3% copper. So we're confident with that kind of strong geological model and results to date that we should be able to get some kind of a transaction to divest or farm out our interest, trying to preserve and retain as much value for our shareholders. Next slide, please. Look, it's been a long time, frankly, since the company has been so well funded, and this enables us to plan well ahead and build up the rate of our work. We are planning major drill programs. There are drilling contractors available in the area, and we're looking in that work to extend our resources and identify new mineralized targets. In terms of funding, I think that with exploration success, further funding support will come. Next slide, please. The idea is a systematic work program which will generate ongoing news flow, as I've tried to show in this slide. There's essentially three work streams that we're chasing. One is around the existing resources. Step out, grow them. The second work stream is around scout drill testing of the emerging targets. And the third one is regional and detailed geophysical and geochemical work to make sure that we have a flow of new targets always coming through. Now, the exciting thing about this sort of ongoing momentum is it creates news flow, but it also creates expertise in the company for finding more deposits, and it advances us along that development pathway. Next slide, please. And I'll just close by saying that, as I said, I was drawn to Helix by the incredible opportunity at Cobar for new high-grade copper discoveries. The company already has 2 copper deposits, and those are 2 deposits within 120 kilometers of copper trends, of which we've only tested 20% with airborne EM, which is a known discovery tool. We want to go big and bold in our work programs to extend these known resources and quickly discover and define more copper resources. Just as an aside, my incentive options when I joined the company trigger at 200,000 tonnes of contained copper in resources. So that's a useful, let's call it a first stage milestone that we're certainly aiming for, and hopefully demonstrate that our objectives are well and truly aligned with our shareholders' aspirations.